Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the director's chair. Today we talk Verhoeven again. And for once, I am joined by the master himself. I am joined by Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time out to watch Flesh and Blood with me.
Oh, it was fantastic. Thanks for having me on. And if I want to say, Sicco, thanks for agreeing to join the network and covering Paul's movies. And yeah, I'm really excited that you decided to do this because to take the time and effort out of your life, out of anyone's life, to do this silly little hobby that we do, I do appreciate it. So thank you for carrying this mantle. And before we get going, I have questions for you. So
Questions?
why Paul? Why did you choose him?
Oh, it was easy. It was
Why?
easy. If we're talking director's chair, we're going to be talking, the Mount Rushmore of directors, and he's in that conversation.
Okay.
And he's Dutch. So I can lend some expertise in some of his idiosyncrasies, peculiarities, perhaps some of the artistic reasons, artistic choices he's made, why certain things were written in a certain way. This movie is seminal in that sense because it is really the clash between his Dutch movie style and the American movie style he's about to develop. So I'm really excited to talk about this film.
Well, that's awesome. Now, did you tell the listeners on your other episodes that you're Dutch as well, correct?
Yes, yes, I admit I am Dutch.
Okay. Well, good. That's amazing. That's awesome, and that's why you picked Paul as well because he's a fellow countryman. He's
He is.
some of the he and my understanding
We
is
live in
is
the
that
same
he.
city.
Oh wow, look at you,
My wife
rubbing
studied
shoulders.
at the exact same university he did. She was in the same sorority, the same student club he was in.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
Minerva.
So that's cool because he is probably the most popular or well known. Is he the most well known director to come from your country?
Probably Jan de Bont more
Oh,
because
who's
of
that?
speed and because of Twister. But Paul Verhoeven is also
Oh,
very well known.
how do you say his name again?
Or Jan de Bont.
Yeah, I see you're saying it
Jan
properly.
de
I
Bont
Yeah.
with a T.
Jan de Bond. I know Jan de Bond.
Yeah.
Jan de Bond. Of course, Jan de Bond. And how do you say
Yeah.
Paul's name better? How do you say it?
Verhoeven.
Verhoeven. Okay, that's better. I like
Yeah.
that. Paul
Yeah.
Verhoeven.
Verhoeven actually means something.
Oh.
Verhoeven means reshotting, like horses. A
Oh.
hoof. So
Oh, okay.
verhoeven means basically reshotting a horse. That's so. At
Okay.
some point, one of his ancestors must have worked as a vet or as a smith or someone who makes horseshoes.
Now, before we get into discussing the movie, what I do, of course, when I cover, I've covered Ed Zwick, and I'm now just about to wrap up Michael Mann films. And what I ask my guess is like, what's their history with the director? Like what's their fandom of the director? And
Right.
can I ask that question to myself? I don't want to usurp. You're the host, but I just want to geek out a
Oh,
little bit
you have
about.
cute questions, so let's cover them first before we launch into
Yeah.
the actual episode. It's fun.
So yeah, so I just want to give your audience an idea of my history with Paul. I gotta keep
Mm-hmm.
calling him Paul because it's easier to pronounce. So,
Of
Mr.
course.
Paul. Now, of course, I saw RoboCop when it came out in '87. I was 12 years old when it came out, and I will never forget. My
Mm-hmm.
dad rented it for a birthday party for me and my friends, and
Oh,
I, I
that's one
remember
you'll never forget.
yeah, I know. We're watching this movie, and I remember my dad watching with me. It's like, is he gonna turn it off? He never did. I think he liked it too, and
It's awesome.
yeah, it's. I remember
Stay out of trouble.
watching this as a kid, thinking this is the greatest. Like, I couldn't believe I was watching this incredibly violent, brutal, amazing. Like, because it's like a combination of
Cool,
superhero
mind
meets.
blowing,
Yeah,
thought provoking, powerful,
yeah, it's
unlike
amazing.
anything you've ever seen.
Anything I've ever
Yeah.
seen before, and I fell in love with RoboCop, and I
And
saw
the
the
insane
sequel.
satire.
Yeah, I love it. And even as a 12-year-old, I got the satire. Like I was a pretty savvy moviegoer at a young age. I'm not bragging, but I understood what was being said, that this was over the top. I even understood this was like almost cartoonish and that it
I'll
was
buy
it
that
was
for $1.
yeah. So I saw RoboCop. Then when Total Recall came out, I was only 15 years old, and this was back in the day. I think they might still be this way, but this was back in the day when they really, of course, I'm a big Arnold fan. Love the action movies. I couldn't believe the same director of RoboCop was doing an Arnold movie. I remember being very excited about that. But I
So was
also
I.
remember thinking I was too young to see this in the theaters because back then they really did like, what's your
They were
age?
strict.
How old are
They
you?
were strict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I bought
These days,
tickets.
4-year-olds can watch porn on the internet, but we were barred
Yeah.
from movies that were,
I remember I bought tickets for I can't remember the movie, but I bought I did the classic, bought tickets for one film, walked into this film. So I'm in the
oh yeah.
theater. That's yeah. And I remember they were going up and down the aisle checking people's tickets, and they didn't
Mm-hmm.
go to me and my buddy at the time because we looked a little bit older than our 15-year-old selves. So they didn't they
Mm-hmm.
thought we passed for 18. They're probably looking for 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and stuff like that. So of course,
Right.
loved that. Saw it in the theaters. Basic Instinct comes out. Now I admit I did not see Basic Instinct in the theaters because of its subject matter. I remember thinking, I don't know if I
Really?
can watch this movie. Well, I was religious growing up, don't forget. And I was,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and the
So,
difference is I was used to Paul Verhoeven.
yeah, well,
I
of
was
course,
used to
we're
what
gonna,
he produces. I mean, Basic Instinct is really the first kind of more Dutch American movie he's making because
right,
it's for adults.
right.
It's for it's film noir. And I can't wait to cover Basic Instinct because
Yeah,
it's
I can't
actually
wait to
my
hear it.
favorite, by far my favorite
Oh, yeah.
Verhoeven movie,
Well, and I
Verhoeven
love
film.
Sharon and I love Michael Douglas, and it's a great movie, and I enjoyed it. I watched it on VHS, and I did enjoy it on VHS. And then, of course, Showgirls comes out, saw that on VHS. I don't want to waste your time with all this. I'll just be very quick. So, saw
Oh,
Showgirls on VHS, saw Starship Troopers on VHS, and of course, I saw Hollow Man. So, I enjoyed all these, but I admit I haven't seen his last three. So, I'll be curious to hear those being covered and talked about.
French
That's
ones.
a good run. Yeah, that's right. So that's a good run though. If you think that's quite the run of movies, even Showgirls, though was so lambasted at the time, it it's got its own quirky, crazy, fun, campy, cult following charm, and
It does,
I think
and
it.
it's worth listening to the episode. In fact, I don't know if you have listened to it yet. It just dropped,
I can't wait to hear it,
right?
and I'll just say this. With Paul, it seems like so far, with everything I've seen of his, and now we're going to talk, of course, about Flesh and Blood. You're never bored.
Never bored, ever.
Yeah.
Can you make sure of that? Yeah, Flesh and Blood. Let's talk about it.
Hmm.
Okay, quick synopsis, right?
Sure.
It's about mercenary Martin, who is played by Rutger Hauer, and he's chosen by his band of misfits for religious reasons to be their leader because they've just conquered a city for their boss Arnold Feeney, and the guy welches. The guy doesn't pay them. He just kicks them out of the city, and they're just broke. So they vow revenge, and they basically steal one of his baggage carts. Lo and behold, the future daughter-in-law of this Arnold Feeney is in that baggage cart, and she's in big trouble because
Hmm.
this is a bunch of scum she's now with. Through shenanigans, they find themselves in a castle, and they find themselves besieged by their former boss, Arnold Feeney, and his son. Nastiness ensues in this dark and miserable and horrible apocalyptic movie. If you've watched a lot of Tarantino,
Hmm.
Tarantino loves Paul Verhoeven. You can tell from his films
Mm.
because, yes, The Hateful Eight is based on The Thing, but in part, it is also based on this one because The Hateful Eight is famous for one thing. Same
That's right.
here. There are no heroes in this film at all. There is not even the damsel in distress, who turns out to be quite diabolical. And I enjoyed it just for that. Because in that
Yeah.
sense, this film is just way ahead of his time and way over the top. And it's perfectly understandable that this was not a direct commercial success, because
No, no.
obviously, once it got into the theater, billed as a medieval action movie, kind of like Conan the Barbarian or whatever it is. This is not a one note movie, and people were wanting to watch a one note story.
Right.
And there
This,
we
yeah.
have
So
it.
this
We have flesh and blood.
and blood. Yeah. Well, this
What
came
was
out
your impression?
40 years ago. 40 years ago, this came out. Number one. That's
Yeah.
crazy. This is the 40th anniversary celebration. Seiko, we're doing the 40. We should title this 40th year celebration of Flesh and Blood. Now, when you asked me
And
to
celebrate it we will, because I love this movie. I thought it was awesome.
It is fun. I had a great time, and I can't wait to talk more about it. I hadn't
Flaws
heard of
and
this film.
boils from the plague and all.
Yeah. I hadn't heard of this film. So when you asked me to come on your season and you gave me the pick, I can't remember. Did I pick it or did you assign it? I honestly don't
I
remember.
sold it on the fact that this was just probably Verhoeven's most violent film,
Okay.
and it was just filled with full frontal nudity. And you
Yes, it
all you
did
said
have.
was, "Stop! You have me at full frontal nudity."
I did say that. Sounds like my humor. Yeah. You
Now
know,
the question is, which version did you watch? Did you watch the theatrical version, or did you watch uh, the director's cut? I watched the
I'm pr
director's cut, which is way more
I'm
fun.
I'm pretty certain I saw the director's cut because I saw everything.
Oh, then you see Jennifer Jason Leigh's Bush.
Well, jeez, yes, yes. I did see her pelvic area. That was in full display. Yes. So I saw the director's cut.
Hmm,
Yeah, and I was
excellent.
no, here's yeah, 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 she's 23. Jennifer Jason Leigh's 23 at this film. And it's interesting. I wonder what Jennifer thinks of doing this film today or what she thinks of the film. And she had high praise for Paul and the film and experience. In fact, she wanted, I mean, we can get right down to it. There's a scene. Okay, I'll tell you, I'm all over the place. As per normal, Ryan's all over the place. I have a lot of thoughts. I don't take notes, Seco, so
Problem.
my brain goes all over. So Jennifer was
That's fine.
great in this film, and she was
Hmm.
one of her earlier roles, and this is a big role for her. She's a young actress. She hadn't done too much before this film. So bless her heart and her brave heart to
Hmm.
really to take on such a huge, demanding, and controversial, brutal role and embrace it. She actually wanted the I'll say sexual assault scene for we should do trigger warning. I don't like to be silly about that, but there is
Trigger warnings. Listen, if you're listening to a podcast about film by Paul Verhoeven, there are several things that you are going to get. One is rape.
okay, sure you. So
It's
there
in
you go.
every movie. You're
Well,
going to get a strong female protagonist because Paul Verhoeven likes his characters strong. He likes his
yeah,
women strong. He likes his women powerful and opinionated and goal oriented. And in that sense, he was talking about Jennifer Jason Leigh and why
she's
Paul Verhoeven
perfect.
cast her. And Paul Verhoeven is like David Lynch, like Stanley Kubrick, an
Mm.
absolute master, an absolute expert at casting just the right people for his film.
Well,
It
she did great.
always,
Yeah,
always works out.
and I
Whether
always
it's
liked her.
Isabelle Huppert in Elle or it's Jennifer Jason Leigh here, she's a complete unknown. You
Hmm.
won't expect this from a 23-year-old, but she carries this movie because
Yes,
she's a very strong female lead. I mean, she's basically the central character of the movie, and
right.
she's in a romantic triangle, and it has to, and she doesn't know or like either man. They're both violent and horrible people in their own
Hmm.
way, right?
Hmm.
One is an aristocrat who will, gladly send people to their deaths and gladly poison people with the plague, and the other is a uncouth rogue of a mercenary who has done nothing but rape, murder, and pillage all his life. And he sees something pretty and shiny in Jennifer Jason Leigh's role, which is Agnes, and he wants it, and he tastes it, and then he wants nothing else, and he becomes obsessed. So she is the pivotal character between the two, and she even up to the end doesn't decide, right? And she has to
Right.
sell this, and that was a big problem on set. And that was a big problem for Jennifer Jason Leigh. As Paul Verhoeven explains at some point, he says, well, I was not used to the process American actors go through. I wasn't used to American actors at all because he's used to Dutch or European actors, and they have a
Mm.
very different method. Paul Verhoeven would say, okay, in this scene, I want you to look surprised. And then when someone says that word, I want you to look shocked, something like that. Or I want you to be angry here, or I want you to be this or that or the other. An American actor will want to know the motivation. But why am I shocked? Why am I angry? What am I feeling? Where's my character going? Can I play with this? Most American actors are used to a lot of leeway in interpreting their character. That doesn't play with someone like Verhoeven, who's a complete and utter autocrat. He's an auteur director. He writes his own stuff or has it written for him. He puts a big Paul Verhoeven stamp on everything. It's his vision. He has it in his head. And whatever is in his head must come to fruition. And if you want something else, well, that's too bad for you. He will just waltz all over you. And if you won't be waltzed over, he will just shout over you. He's one of those megaphone guys, right? And if he can't shout over you, take you apart in a room. He's done that to Sharon Stone, in fact. People would say, yeah, Sharon Stone would get problematic every few weeks. So then Paul would take her in a room, shout at her for about 2 hours, and then she would be fine for a couple of weeks. Now, basically, that's his directing style. That's how he directs his actors. They're basically cattle to him. And so here is this European production, because that's what this is. It's Orion Pictures. They are the distributor. Yeah, they're paying $5.5 million, which is more money than he's ever had for any movie. Because Soldier of Orange was his most expensive film, and that was $3.5 million. And the only reason he got that much money was because of the royal family. Because the subject of the film was Erik Hazelhoff-Roelsema, which is a Dutch hero, a soldier of orange, basically, and had very close ties to the royal family. So when they were going to do a biopic on him, money was easy. They rolled out the red carpet for him, right?
Wow.
He got $3.5 million, which is the most expensive Dutch film at that point.
Nice.
Right. And it was a massive success. So it was all fine. But up until then, if you were a Dutch filmmaker, you would apply for government money. You would get a grant because film is considered art. And art has grant money. It's basically you're sort of a government employee in a sense, a contractor. You work for the government, you spend the money on your film, you produce the film, and then you pay back from the proceeds of the film. If it's successful, if it's not successful, that's fine too. Then you have Paul Verhoeven, which has plagued him all his life. Paul Verhoeven is a commercial successful director. He's great. And they hated him for it. So one of the reasons he's dipping his toe in American films is because getting grant money is becoming more and more problematic. And he can only get 400,000 maximum. And then he has to find commercial means to get money, get financing. So here he has Orion Pictures, who's trying to buy him, who's trying to get him to the United States to make their slop. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. And so he's dithering. So they just keep throwing more and more money at him. And at some point he says, well, okay, let me tell you this. I had this old TV show called Flores. It was really successful. It was a kind of a cross between Ivanhoe and Robin Hood. And so what I would like to do is make a realistic film about medieval times and have this Flores character in it. We will write the story. Don't worry about it. Just get me the money and I'll work the production here. And then at some point, they needed castles, etc. They found that in Spain. So this became a American-Dutch-Spanish co-production with contracts. So it had to have X amount Dutch actors, X amount Spanish actors, European actors, and a bunch of Americans, because Orion had people on the contract and said, hey, this is all great and everything, but we have Bruno Kirby and we have, a bunch of people you should just work with, and so who do you want for your lead actress? And all Paul Verhoeven said was, I really like that girl from Fast Times at Richmond High because she looks pretty she looks pretty in a bikini, and I need her to be nude. And they're like, you need her to be nude. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah, we did see your Dutch film, so I guess there will be some nudity. Well, and in their back of their minds, they're thinking, you know what? The MPA will just take care of that. But we've got Paul Verhoeven, because at that time, in the early '80s, as you know. There were good scripts everywhere. There was money thrown around to make movies because there was a market, but they didn't have talent. They didn't have directors. They didn't have cinematographers. So they had to get those people, preferably from outside. So they needed talent. So here you go. We're going to get Paul Verhoeven. We're going to let him make his movie. And then he came up with this. And so he's directing Jennifer Jason Leigh, and she just doesn't get it. She's just looking at him like he's an alien from outer space. It's like, what are you talking about? I have a character. But who does she really like? Is she really just, does she want Steven? And is she just placating Martin? Or does she really like Martin? And is she just happy to be with Martin, but she still has to be a lady? Or what's my motivation here? And that's what Paul Verhoeven is trying to convey. It's like, no, this is a woman who is doing anything and everything to survive.
That's right.
This is survival of the fittest. This is Darwin. This is the Middle Ages, and everyone could die at any moment because you could get the plague or you could get the chop. And this is an aristocratic woman. So she's relatively protected all her life. I mean, yeah, and you have to remember, this is a 14, 15-year-old, right? Because that's the year, around that time, you get married. It's like your father finds a suitable partner for you who will elevate the family. It's aristocratic. Most of those marriages are arranged. So she's in an arranged marriage with the son of Andolfini, who has just reconquered his city. You have to assume this is set in Italy. This is Renaissance Italy, right? When cities were fighting each other, and well, sometimes these cities would rebel and kick out their aristocrat, and they would be a republic all of a sudden. And so this former aristocrat would be like, yeah, that's great. I'm hiring an army. That's what those people were doing. Martin and the bunch, they were just a hired army, and they would reconquer your city for you. And he promised them looting. It's like, okay, I'm going to let you loot the city. And then, of course, he was like, wow, we're having success here. I have my city back. Maybe that looting is not such a good thing because, I'm not going to have much of a city after they're done burning, raping, pillaging the place. So, hey, let's just kick them out. And that's what happened. And then they kidnapped this poor Agnes. And so she's thrown in this mix between these violent forces. And the only way she can cope with that is just using her feminine wiles.
Right.
Verhoeven is trying to explain this to this 23-year-old who just did a movie about a high school.
Right. Yeah. Well, what I loved about her character was, it was funny the rape scene, which is of course the big scene. This is the scene that probably was the most.
But this is only the second or third rape you see on screen. Because
Well,
when
it's
they're
the
pillaging
big.
the city, women are being torn out of their
Wow.
dresses
Yeah.
left and right.
But they're quick. You know what I mean? They're kind of quick flashes here, there. They're like,
Yeah, this is a gang rape, what she's going through,
right,
and it's she's being tormented.
right. And what I found, I understand maybe a lesser audience might not understand what she's doing because there's some criticism, I guess, where people are like, oh, she's enjoying it. But no, she realized she had two options, fight, scream, punch, which is fine. In her fight or
Mm,
flight mode, she decided
okay.
I'm going to give in, so to speak, to lessen the violence that might be afflicted upon me. And it worked. In that moment, it worked for her. And then we find later as the movie goes on that Martin starts to truly, he admits at the end, the only thing he ever cared for was in his life was her. So in
Mm-hmm.
the turn of events, we find out his heart was always ended up being with her after all. And then, of course, we know the Jack character, what's his name? Played by Tom.
Steven,
Yeah. So Steven, the geeky, educated
the
nobleman.
Renaissance man,
Yeah,
basically.
he
He's
yeah,
like a
he
Da
knew.
Vinci.
Yeah, which was great, and I love. There's not so much I want to say about the film, but I want to get this part over with regarding just Jennifer's character. What I found was at first, yes, it's shocking, and it's I mean, obviously watching that assault on screen, it's never you shouldn't enjoy it as a viewer, but what you're seeing is this was more than common, and I know that's what Paul wanted to show was that this time and place of our world's history. And unlike the films showing maybe like a Robin Hood type film or who knows what, that this kind of activity was brutal and this was spoils of war. Like they didn't have like it's like if you didn't have money, but you had prisoners, what did you do with the prisoners, right? They're more fun to have alive than dead, so to speak.
You
So
make
this is what
sport with the women.
yeah, you make sport. They're less
Yeah.
than
Did you
it's
see
either we
the
bash your
juxtaposition
head against a
he
wall
placed in
or
it? Okay.
first say
Verhoeven
again.
juxtaposed
Yep.
this scene. You have the rape, right? Which is
Right.
central to the film because you get to know Agnes's character under duress. And, she basically, during the rape, she seduces her rapist to
Right.
survive because she knows what's going to happen after she's been raped by the first guy. The rest is going to have her. She's going to be used up and they will just discard her. The women will probably kill her in night because they're
Right.
jealous, because,
Right.
their men want her more than they want them or something.
Hmm.
Because you see these camp followers around and they're as horrible as the men, right? These are just basically uncouth rabble. And this highborn noble lady falls into their hands. So what are they going to do? They're going to mess it up. But there's another scene Later on in the film, actually towards the end, when Steven, through something that, really tests your suspension of disbelief,
Sure.
after an
Oh,
explosion, is thrown into a tree and falls into the hands of that same group.
right,
And they treat him like they treated her,
right,
right?
right.
With
Yeah.
complete disdain. And basically they treat him like a dog. They chain him up
Yep.
and they taunt
Shoot
him.
arrows
And
at him.
yeah, so and they basically they rape him as well in many ways, right? They're
Right.
treated the same way. And here's the thing: the only reason why they kept him alive is because he's a bargaining chip, just in case. That's what his
It's
worth
also,
is.
I think it is also in some ways to sort of torture her.
Yeah.
'Cause
And
if
yeah,
he's
and
dead, there's
well,
closure,
she's
right?
a part of their group, right? She's
Yeah.
done everything possible to ingratiate herself with them
Mm-hmm.
at that
Mm-hmm.
point. And they make her kill him. They
Now,
literally give her a gun and they aim it at
yeah.
him and like kill him, right? So that's the difference in when a woman falls into the hands of a group like this and when a man falls into the hands of a group like he's just a man, he has less value. But a woman you can have sex with. She's a great toy. You keep her
Mm-hmm.
around for that. And that's the difference between the two. Agnes knew full well what was going to happen to her. And
Yeah.
ironically, or maybe not, a woman in that time needs to know, needs to be prepared for what could happen, right? So she basically at, tells her maid to seduce some soldier so she will know what to do romantically. Okay, how do I please my new husband? I mean, she's lived in a convent, right? So
Yeah.
what does she know about men? The nuns won't tell her, but her maid will just, oh, well, I'll just seduce him for you. So this guy bangs her, and she watches, and it's a
Right.
playful thing,
Do you know who
but
that was played by? Agnes's handmaiden was played by the I'm not even joking. Did you catch who it is?
no,
Very famous, very the voice actress for Bart Simpson, Nancy Cartwright.
really, Marge? Is that Marge?
No, Bart. Oh, sorry, I
Oh,
said Bart. Not Bart.
Bart's
Yeah, Bart.
voiced
Yeah,
by a
Bart.
woman.
Bart. Yeah, Bart's voiced by a woman named
I'll buy
Nancy
that.
Cartwright. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm surprised you didn't know that. Yeah. So Nancy Cartwright is a multi millionaire now, but this is pre Simpsons, of course. But
Yeah,
uh,
and barely pre Simpsons because the Simpsons started like in the late 80s, like
88,
88 maybe,
89, 88,
88,
89.
89. So this was right
So
after.
yeah, this is a few years after. But yeah, that handmaiden was played by Nancy Cartwright, who voices Bart Simpson.
Oh, that's cool. Cool detail. But
Yeah.
anyway, that scene prepares Agnes for the ordeal to come because she uses everything, and that this woman is a sponge. She
Mhm.
uses everything she learns and turns it on the people who taught her, right? Because at some point she seduces Steven, right? They're under the tree. That scene with the tree where with those with you have like people have been executed, hung from
Yeah.
trees, and they're below that tree. She basically tells Steven, there's a root right under um, these condemned people, and if you eat from that root, you will love each other forever. And of course, Steven is like, nonsense. And of course, she digs up a root, and it's like, hey, you're a scholar, right? You're saying you're this scientist guy. How are you gonna prove or disprove anything if you won't try it, if you won't
Yeah.
discover it? So he's like, so he eats it, and that's how she gets him, right? That's how he falls for her. And these are all little things she picks up from that situation that save her life when she falls into the hands of this rabble. And this is all by design because Verhoeven crafted this character, this central pivotal character, to go through this and come out on the other end. The only thing he wasn't really prepared for was this making this triangle work. And arguably, it doesn't.
Right.
And that's because the original script wasn't written that way. The original
So
script by Richard Sauterman and Paul Verhoeven, because he co-wrote it, because
right.
Richard Sauterman is basically his steady writer. He's been writing since Flores. So he wrote all those Dutch movies, including Soldier of Orange, including The Fourth Man, including Keetje Tippel, including Turkish Delight, etc. He wrote all of them, and they're used to working with each other. So basically, Souterman does a version, and then Paul Verhoeven makes his screenplay, and then Souterman finishes it by the definitive. And then the studio came with, yeah, that's great, but we need a female lead. We need a damsel in distress. We need a girl. We need both of them to be in love with her.
Right.
And they were like minor characters in the script, and they were highlighted and brought into the center. So instead of this rivalry between Rutger Hauer characters, Martin, and the captain of the mercenaries, Hawkwood, you get something else. You get this sort of awkward romance that doesn't really work.
Talk about Rutger. We're
Yes,
dancing around him. So how do you say his name again properly?
Rutger.
Oh boy. Okay. Well,
Rutger Hauer. Rutger.
maybe I'll just call him
Anyway.
Hauer. That might be Mr. Hauer. So now he is from your neck of the woods too?
Yes, he's born in Amsterdam and grew up in Friesland.
Okay.
So he's a Frisian guy. That's the blonde hair, the blue eyes. Frisians are all like that.
How many movies did he do with Paul before this one? Was it just a couple?
This is the fifth one, including the TV show. It's 6. So he's the stable actor, basically. It's like there would never have been another leading man. It would always been Rutger.
Okay, so Paul and Rutger were they're like the Martin Scorsese and De Niro, so to speak, of relationships.
Yeah. Okay. Paul Verhoeven's first choice for RoboCop was Rutger.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I don't know if that would have necessarily worked.
And a rumor has it that they had a falling out, partially because of this film, and Rutger wasn't available.
That's not a rumor. I think it's pretty much established that they had him. That's what I read, anyways. Well,
I have Rutger Hauer's autobiography. I've seen in interviews, and they've since. I mean, they didn't talk to each other for a year, but after that, they kissed and made up.
Sure.
But Rutger's idea of this movie was, this is going to be my franchise. I'm going to be the hero of this film, and I'm going to be a noble knight, and I'm going to get the girl, and I'm going to be a medieval James Bond. That was his whole thing. And of course, Paul Verhoeven is like, no, you're a scum. You're a bad guy. You're horrible. You're right. In a sense, you're very human, and you're a lot more like your Blade Runner character than you are Flores.
Yeah, didn't he want to clean up his image just a little bit? He kind of wanted to be more of a good guy for American film. He was like, man, I'm trying to get some American film work here, and I keep playing bad guys. I played a bad guy in Nighthawks. I played a bad guy in Blade Runner. I kind of want to play a good guy, so to speak, in movies, and now I'm a rapist, like marauder, killer, and it's like he kind of wanted to clean up his act. And I think that's probably my biggest, I would say, criticism of the film to some degree is the film has. It's a little disjointed. It doesn't know if it wants to be like a swashbuckling type fun film in the vein of like Indiana Jones or Pirates of the Caribbean type fun, and then it has some brutal elements to it. Now I know he was able to perfect that with his next movie RoboCop, with this sort of satire and comedy mixed with brutality, but I think this movie would have been better served had Martin. I think if Rutger and Paul agreed that, look, Martin's a bad guy, like he's human and he's living in a rough time where he's surviving his world. Yes, he is a robber, rapist, marauder, mercenary for hire. I get it. That's his life. And you can find the humanity even in that person. But even the quote unquote good guys, the royalties, they were bad too, because they betrayed, their own payments. They're like, hey, we're gonna kill you and rob from you that which you got back for us. So no one's good, and I get that everyone's amoral. And so
yes, these are not anti-heroes.
No,
like you have heroes and you have anti-heroes, and anti-heroes are morally right but do bad things, like the Punisher. The Punisher is the most perfect anti-hero in existence. He's morally right. Yes, he should kill the bad guys because they hurt children.
Right.
But he's a vigilante, so it's moral. Right. So it's legally wrong, but morally right. That's what an anti-hero is. Martin is not an anti-hero. Martin is a scumbag who kills people, rapes women, steals, and has fun. And those were a lot of people in the Middle Ages. And what you were watching was not an American action movie in the Middle Ages.
That's what I
This
mean. I
was
feel like it
a,
was.
you were
uh,
watching a European art movie about the horrors of medieval life by a director obsessed with heightened reality.
No,
And
and
now he had a
I
budget, he had American money to
right.
make something he finally wanted to make, which is, this gigantic movie about the Middle Ages. He's probably been wanting to do that ever since Flores, because part of what ended up in the script and all the horrors of it is all researched. None of this is made up. None of this is even creativity. It was just research stuff. It's like, oh yeah, we found out this, and we found out that they would just trebuchet animal parts into castles, so the defenders would get sick, so they could take the castle more easily. Stuff like that, and
Mhm.
that's what happens in this film. So here you have a director, a mathematician, a physicist, director for art's sake, who is making an American film with American money on his terms, and it fails because you cannot make an American film, and that's the part of why this film is so seminal, and why RoboCop and all subsequent movies are so good, is because it teaches Paul Verhoeven a very important lesson, and that he cannot make an American movie when he's not living in the United States, because he had been trying not to live in the United States for over almost a decade, because they've been asking him to come over, and he was like, "Yeah," because Jan de Bont was already in the United States shooting movies, because he's one of the most sought after cinematographers in the world, and Jan de Bont was constantly telling him, "You need to be over here, otherwise you can never make the movies you want to make." The trouble is, here you have a guy who's set in his ways. He's in his 40s. He's like, no, I have kids. I have a mortgage. I just want to make the movies I want to make and not have to deal with these stupid government people who tell me what to do all the time. I just want to have my way. And that's what he got with this film. And all your points are valid. Yes, he should have been heroic. Yes, there should have been a clear cut bad guy.
No, wait, no,
Yes,
no, wait, slow down, no, no. What I'm saying is actually sort of the opposite. Is that I think if you're to read, in fact, when I was watching this film, there's a
mm-hmm.
part of me is like, I kind of wish they would do this movie again. I think you could make this film with today's, I'm just being honest, with today's costume design, budget, set design, and some great actors out there. Recast everybody, of course,
In a few
because there's
years, you're
an
going to be able to do this completely AI.
well,
You won't
just wait.
even have to have
Let me get,
actors
just
or
stop. Let me get this out. Let me get this out. So what I'm trying to say
sure.
is that there's an awesome story here. And I think if you made the Martin character absolutely like, yeah, just make him clearly evil in the sense of what he is. And you can make
Yeah,
the
black and
Steve
white.
character a little bit more, you can make him naive and make him a little bit like bumbling or not bumbling, sort of like kind
Yeah,
of
but he's
naive
morally
and altruistic.
reprehensible.
Well, you could change it a little bit where you could have sort of a black and white, but make the Martin character bad, but have the girl show like the girls or the damsel of distress would be the audience, and that we have two charismatic actors
Hmm.
playing these roles where you'd even have the damsel of distress would be the kind of like we don't know who to quote unquote root for because we see ourselves on both sides of the camp depending on the world that we're raised in because you have
Sure.
one who's raised in wealth and opportunity and protection and safety, and that's why he is the way he is. Doesn't make him good or bad, but he was raised in a world where he didn't have to go to crime and that kind of stuff to be the way he is. And then you have another individual equally as charismatic, but also good at his job of surviving,
Mm.
and but he
Hmm.
does it through quote unquote bad measures. And then you have the damsel of distress torn between the two ideals or worlds, and it is
Yes.
ambiguous. I like how we don't know really where she is, but she does choose safety in the end, which does make sense, especially for that
She wants
time.
to live.
Yeah,
She
she
just
wants to
wants to
live. Yeah,
live like everyone in the Middle Ages who, let's face it, it was an age where you were lucky if you would make it past 30.
yeah, yeah.
If
So
you would,
I
I mean, people would get the plague. Very simply, it's in this all over this movie. Everybody gets the plague because this that era. So
right.
it's one big theme we haven't hit on, and that's something
Yeah.
Paul Verhoeven pushed into this film and pushed into this story: religion.
Right. Sure.
Religion
Talk
is
about
the
it.
driving
Yeah.
force behind everything that's happening here. And the entire
Hmm.
film is almost an allegory against the church
Right.
in everything that's happening. It's Paul Verhoeven taking the piss at the Catholic Church, basically.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
not just religion, but the idea of modern science, with religion and the idea
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Martin's group is following all these signs and all these signs. You could argue that everything they pointed towards ended up in death and destruction. And then you
Yes.
could argue
And
that Paul is pro science and understanding because his character that was those things, quote unquote, gets the girl in the end.
okay, explain then why Paul Verhoeven is completely obsessed with Jesus Christ.
Is he religious?
No, but he loves Jesus.
Okay, well, that's
Because he
fine.
doesn't love Jesus as the Son of God or as
The teachings.
the religious symbol. He loves Jesus of Nazareth because of his teachings, because of his philosophy, because of his style of creating awareness of poverty and uh, problems in the world through the way he would sermon,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
fair.
Paul Verhoeven is obsessed with Jesus, and he's been in this think tank about basically Jesus's legacy for over 30 years. He's written a book about Jesus, and this leaks into every film he makes.
Mm,
All his films all wrestle with this existentialism about religion.
okay.
And
Okay.
that's what you see here. It's like everything that happens because people are interpreting it religiously, right? You have this group who are all there. They start the first scene of the film. You see the besieged city. In the first scene, the mercenaries, they all drop down to their knees and they're all, they take the Eucharist, all of them. And the two gay guys in the group, they also want the Eucharist. But the preacher, who's probably they call him the cardinal, but he's probably some priest who got kicked out of the
Right.
priesthood
Yeah.
for molesting children, or maybe he didn't molest enough children, who knows? But he got kicked, or maybe he's a drunk or problematic or couldn't
Right.
read the Bible or whatever. But he's basically ministering to this group of scumbags, and he's giving them the bread of Christ. And so these two gay guys want it too, and he's like dithering, right? Because they're
Right.
living in sin, and it's kind of peculiar, which is a kind of a Paul Verhoeven thing to put that in there,
Right.
because he's again taking the piss at the church, right?
Okay.
And then you have Martin, who he doesn't ask for the bread of Christ. He takes it. He
Mm.
grabs it out of the hand of the priest. It's like, no, I'm Martin, and I'm going to kick some ass. So he takes up his sword and he conquers the city, right? And from then on, Martin is the catalyst of the priest to get control over this group religiously, because they dig up some. They've been kicked out of the city. They don't have the swords anymore. They need something. And one of the camp followers is pregnant by who we don't
Mm.
really know. She says
You're
it's
right.
from Martin, but could have been anyone, really. Could have been, probably not Karst, because that's probably the only guy in the group she hasn't done, because he really likes her. And she's like, no, no, you're friend zoned, right? And so
Right.
that's the other love triangle in the film. It's Celine wants Martin. Martin is okay with Celine, but she's just an expedient. But Karst loves Celine. And so
Right.
there's this tension there. The same tension that happens between, and that's typical of Paul Verhoeven style. He mirrors everything. By watching one thing, you understand the other. That's his style. That's how he explains the art he's trying to bring to you. An artist needs you to have a focus on something. That's why they, for example, if they're painting a dish with fruit, they give you that fruit from a certain light from outside or something. So you have a focused light to look at the fruit in a certain way. This is the same way he does it, but he does it with these two juxtaposition triangles. Anyway, not to make things confusing, Martin is the guy who becomes the Jesus figure in a way,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Because at some point he just takes
Right.
over the religion.
Yeah.
He just basically starts manipulating the so-called prophecies that this cardinal sees, because he keeps seeing symbolism and everything. Oh, he sees a
Right.
burning noose. So, oh, trouble must be coming. Oh, he sees a statue pointing in a certain way, or the statue has a sword. Yeah, that statue obviously is our patron saint, because we are men with swords, but we are righteous. So we are going to follow this patron saint, and this patron saint will protect us, stop us from being beggars, will bring us wealth again, because that's all they want, right? They don't want to sleep in the dirt. You have Saint Martin, which is an interesting concept. Saint Martin is the basis for Santa Claus. Saint Martin was a patron saint, and he cut off his cloak to share it with a beggar. Couple that to a Greek Orthodox Turkish saint who administered to the poor and would give them presents. The combination of that became Sinterklaas, which is a Dutch yearly tradition. From Sinterklaas, the Americans needed time, or the British probably needed a time at Christmas to, have it be more commercial. We need to sell presents here. We need to sell goods. And people are at Christmas are staying home and having dinner, and it's not commercially viable. So they thought of Santa Claus, because they figured out, oh, the Sinterklaas thing might work here, but we have to pretty it up. So we'll use elves and a sled and a chimney and all that stuff. This film depicts the origins of Santa Claus.
Oh, I missed that.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh.
Yeah, the dark origins of Santa.
I think this film, in some ways, for me too, when I was watching it, as I wasn't as quote unquote shocked as I thought I might have been. Maybe that's just because I'm not, I would say desensitized is the right word, but when you start watching stuff like Game of Thrones and things, I wonder even if George Martin or even the creators of Game of Thrones saw some of the stuff. This is what I mean. This, because
everybody loves this film.
That, well,
this
I mean,
film
there's
is
concepts in this film
for its historical accuracy. It's lauded as the best film on medieval times ever. So when you're making a fantasy medieval TV show, of course you're going to look at this film and say, we should have some of that.
I know you don't like remakes, Sicco. I know that you're always against that, but this is a story I think that's worth. I don't know. I think it's worth. You can make a mini series out of this, and that's just because you only have 2 hours to tell a story. But there's so much going on here, and so many characters. Like, for example, one of the storylines that I like. Well, I mean, you can't disagree. Are you telling me the Hawk? What's the guy's name? Hawkwood. He was awesome. He was my favorite side character, and I wanted to know more about him. I want to know his history, and he's just kind of those guys like. It would have been better served to have him over an 8 episode arc, in the sense, because
arguably Hawkwood is the most moral character in the film.
Yes, he was my favorite. Maybe that's why he was my favorite.
He felt guilty about hurting the poor nun.
Yes,
so
and that's what I'm getting at. I love that whole side. I love that whole side storyline. The way the movie starts, it doesn't even go where it ends, and that's not good or bad. It's surprising. There's so many different storylines. He hurts this nun or whatever who's fighting for her protection, and he goes to hit her behind the curtain, splits her skull, he mends her.
This is character driven European filmmaking. Americans are story driven.
I want more.
They tell you a story. Yeah, and when you're telling a story, then everyone who is a part in that story is subservient to the story. But when you're making a character-driven film, then what the characters are doing is the interesting thing, and that's why everyone has something to do. That, and this fed into the problems. Why this was a quote unquote developmental hell. Characters were character driven, right? They all had something to do. They all had a part to play, but none of it made any sense to the actors, because they were expecting a story and there is none, right? There really isn't. I think the Red Mask comes closest to explaining some of the origins of this story, about a dinner party, and the person under the Red Mask is death itself. Kind of the ending of this film kind of plays out like that story. Well, there are 2 historical events that were the basis of what little story this film has. One is Jan van Leiden, who became he was a fanatical Christian, and he became a religious leader in the German city of Münster. Create a bonfire of the vanities, right? If you know that story. It happened in Italy as well. Savonarola, which was a religious leader who said, we have to get rid of all our worldly possessions because it's making us corrupt. God hates us. That's why he's given us the plague. So we must all follow the Lord's teachings. I know the Lord's teachings, and hey, I talk to God, He talks to me. We're buddies. We're this, right? And he's one of those guys. And so this Jan van Leiden was the same kind of guy, and everyone who was disagreeing with him, he would just chop their head off in the middle of the square. Now, there's another story, which is the wrecking of the Batavia, which was a ship during our colonial era, a large ship, and it shipwrecked on an island. And the inhabitants, about 200, 300 people survived. The inhabitants started populating the island, started rebuild because, they were waiting to be discovered again, but, that could take years. And there was this character, I think his name was Peterson or something. Anyway, he was one of those religious nutcases, and he held that island. He ruled it with an iron fist. And that's basically what's happening here. It's a religious fanatic, the cardinal, through Martin, rules this little mob and creates a little kingdom in that castle. And so everyone's on set and it's like, what is this? What am I doing here? What's my part? And so all these actors who are from different nationalities and different schools of acting start arguing with each other. They were filming in really cold, damp castles with no central heating. They didn't have trailers. There was no money. So everybody was miserable. They were drunk. They hated each other. They call it flesh, blood, and elbows because at some point, the actors who were trying to figure out a way into this film were elbowing each other out of the shot. So to be more into the shot. So that's one of the reasons why all these characters have more flesh on them. If you come up with a good idea and you come up to Verhoeven saying, well, we could do this and that, the other for my character, he's going to let you run with it if it works. If it doesn't, he's going to shout you down. And then you have Rutger Hauer, who wants to be a true blue hero, who's playing a bad guy that he doesn't want to be, and he's at odds with his own director. And they were shouting at each other in Dutch. And the rest of the crew was just standing around listening to these guys yelling at each other in this weird guttural language. And there was just no end to the shoot. There's just no end to it. Because if you have a bad situation like this, then everything is going to go slower. Things are going to go wrong. People are misunderstanding each other.
The actor that played Cars, do you recognize him?
Oh, sure. From Blade Runner. And he's also in, your Stallone movie.
Yeah. Isn't he like an Orion type, one of those, he's your classic 80s bad guy. He has not the most handsome face in the world, but he used that to have a very fun career.
From what I understand, I saw an interview with him and he had a miserable time and he hates Paul Verhoeven as a result.
Oh, no.
It's like, that's the worst movie I was ever in, and Paul Verhoeven is crazy, and I didn't have a trailer, and there was unsafe. And because at some point they're standing on top of the parapets of the castle. It's a real castle. Right? Yeah, it's a castle in Spain, near Malaga. It's beautiful, and there are no safety lines. And they had nets, but they were pretty low because otherwise it would ruin the shot. Welcome to Paul Verhoeven land. The shot is more important than your life, right? Sure. And if you have a problem with that, then I'll just be happy to shout at you. So this guy was like, I want a safety line. And apparently Paul Verhoeven had a tantrum and told him, you fucking American actors, first of all, you can't act. Second of all, you have a bad attitude. Third of all, you're a bunch of pussies. You are wusses. I mean, all the other actors are standing on the parapet. They have no problem. But you're standing here and you want an extra safety line. Fine, you little pussy. I'll get you a safety line. Apparently, then you get the other safety lines too. But
well, nothing wrong with being safe. Nothing wrong with being safe, but I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of heights. I might want to. So was he. This was a dangerous movie to be on, and it's about a dangerous time.
But I loved it. A certain amount of realism from that, and that's what Paul Verhoeven is all about: augmenting realism,
right?
Making realism so over the top, because that's what this really is. It's very hyperbolic, and this style never leaves him. Right? It's like he needs to impress on you the reality of the situation by overdoing it.
So how did Paul, before we close up here, I'm curious, how did Paul get RoboCop if this movie didn't quote unquote do well at the box office?
Orion wanted Paul Verhoeven badly, and they already said at the start of this project, whatever happens, we want you to do more movies for us. So when they didn't bother to even promote this film. They barely put any publicity into it. They had this weird contract where Orion could distribute it in America, which they really didn't. I think it was in a couple of theaters and then it just went straight to video. So they considered it a resale loss to get Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven could market it in Holland, and in Spain it was marketed by some other company. And then they argued over the money and the proceeds. RoboCop was already in the works at that point. It's just Paul Verhoeven didn't want to do it because Paul Verhoeven thought RoboCop sucked. He hated the script. He thought it was nonsense. He thought it was ridiculous. And when this movie failed, basically that gave his wife enough leverage over him to say, look, Paul, you can't have everything in life. We are going to have to go to America and you're going to have to shoot RoboCop because it's a good script. And he's like, no, it's not a good script. Apparently, there's this famous moment where he just throws the script over his shoulder and she picked it up and read it. And it's like, no, this isn't so bad. This isn't as bad as you think. And he's like, yes, it is. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's just a cartoon. It's stupid. And it's like, no, it's about, she basically said, but you like Jesus and this is about Jesus. And he's like, where? And it's like, no, literally, RoboCop is Jesus. And then he looks at it and he's like, yeah, it's Paradise Lost, basically. It's RoboCop loses paradise. He stops being a man. And because he's crucified by these criminals. Right. And then he comes back to life.
Yep.
He's American Jesus.
I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil your
Jesus
RoboCop.
Would come back to life and shoot people, right? And that's the famous story. And apparently, his wife was really like probably sick of hearing this shit about this art commission who wouldn't give him any money and all the trouble he was going through and the fact that how frustrated he was that he couldn't make the movies he wanted. And he's like, well, just go there and we'll see. We'll figure that out. And he's in his 40s and his kids are going to high school. And he's like, yeah, but what about the girls? And she's like, and she was the one pushing him. It's like, no, we're going to go. She's the reason why he worked with Arnold. She's the reason because she liked Arnold. Arnold has a way with women. And so Arnold at some point came to their table when they were having a meeting. And he introduced himself, and he obviously introduces himself to Paul Verhoeven's wife. Oh, Martine, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I'm just a big fan of your work. You're wonderful. So, and he says, I have this wonderful project that I want your husband to do. Can I send you the script? And then it was just a handshake. He just came to dinner with the guys from TriStar and Arnold, and they shook hands, and that was it. But that's how amazing. It works. It's like Verhoeven is difficult.
Sounds like it.
He's headstrong and difficult.
What is it with you people from there?
Yeah, we're Dutch.
Well, we got a lot of great movies still to cover, and this was an absolute treat sequel to cover Flesh and Blood. I thought it was a overall fun movie. Was not bored. I thought, selfishly, I kind of wanted to see because some of the fight, like let's be honest, the sword fighting, some of the fight scenes were it almost a very Monty Python-esque type quality of fighting. Like it's just like you could add like Benny Hill music to some of the fight scenes, and that's what it seemed like. And that's a
sure.
And they
didn't have the money.
I know, and that's what I mean. So, like, this is a movie, or I should say, this is a story. I don't want to say the movie is a remake. This is a story worth reinvestigating. I think this is a story. I love the motif, I love the ideas of it.
Henry Cavill.
Yeah, sure. Right? So I think this is something worth reinvestigating. So I'm not saying redo this movie, but you could redo the movie in that there's a lot going on here, and I think it'd make a great. I think it would make a great one season miniseries. I think there's some. I would love to see these sword fights done right. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what my biggest pull away was. It's just nobody knew how to fight. It felt like kids in the backyard playing with the broomsticks. That's what it felt like. So I was like, other than that, right.
So yeah, I agree with you. This could have been done better. Probably not at the time, because if you look at like Highlander, which is contemporary, it's much the same thing, right? There's also a lot to say about that one. I think I covered it for the erstwhile network we had at some point.
Right.
But yeah, no, I agree. It could be a great miniseries. It could be a lot of things.
All right. So what's next for you?
What's
next? What's the next recording you got going?
We are about to record RoboCop with Sean from the erstwhile Dolph Lundgren podcast. And I have Mr. Bond himself, Jack Frug. I have him set for Hollow Man.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
So that should be a fun one. We're still discussing if we're going to do it drunk or not, and what cocktails should be drunk during said recording.
Well, we were very sober for this one, so I appreciate it, and I appreciate you, Sicco, for tackling Paul. This is not an easy one to tackle, but it's a fun one.
It's a mesmerizing set of films, and at some point I'm going to have to do the Dutch ones. I think I'm going to do the Dutch ones. Yeah, the reason why it's like that, not that people have to watch them. I would never make anyone watch a Dutch movie. Why would you? But they are interesting in this particular way, and that's a good way of closing this recording, closing this episode, is that Paul Verhoeven himself said that there's an artist trap. And that's basically an artist is always remaking himself, is always repeating himself. There are a lot of things you see in this film. For example, the way he directed Jennifer Jason Leigh, that she has like two emotions in one scene, right? That she goes from sweet and innocent into diabolical and crafty. Well, he directed Sharon Stone in much the same way in Total Recall, and later that's why he picked her for Basic Instinct, because that's what he was looking for. Someone who could play this sweet, innocent woman, but also be dangerous. Because I think that's the woman he likes. His wife might be like that.
Who knows? Sounds like it.
Who knows?
I love it. He married a strong woman. Just like you, Sicco. You married a strong woman too, I believe.
I married a lioness.
Yeah, that's the way to me too.
And
that's me too.
I'm in constant fear of being eaten, so I'm on my toes all the time.
Oh, good. I'm glad somebody keeps you on your toes.
There you go. Anyway, thank you, Ryan, for participating in this recording.
Of course.
I always love podcasting with you, even if it's only once every few years. But you're a busy guy, and you have to spread yourself around. So,
thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Time.
Good luck with the rest of the rest of the episodes. I can't wait.
Stay tuned. More to come. Bye for now.